You want to sleep, you can't even sleep. You lose your appetite, you gain appetite. Things you used to like, you don't like anymore. There's a human side of this that we sometimes overlook as human beings. And we put a lot of thought into it. I'm glad you talked about what you talk about. Of the 1,173 suicide cases I worked on this year, listen to me carefully. 1,173 suicide cases of people who just chose to give up on life. There were people who you would never have expected. Children you would never have expected. But the one thing they all had in common was that there was some pain, there was something they were going through that they couldn't understand or they couldn't process or couldn't deal with. How many of us have ever had a broken heart from an intimate relationship? Oh, come on. Am I talking to... No, I'm not. I can't talk to you all right now. Pastor Sam, seriously, how many of us have ever had a broken heart from an intimate relationship? Come on. Like, really? Yeah, like, really, right? You feel like you couldn't even breathe. Like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die, right? Right. An emotion as simple as love. An emotion as simple as love can transform the human being into something else, can cause pain on levels you've never felt before. Right? I mean, I'm a living example of physical pain. You look at me, I have scars from my head to my toes. Right? Physical pain, broken arm, broken leg, broken this, instant, so many things I could tell you. Been on the operating table, out-of-body experiences, 9 different times I could have died. But the time that I chose to kill myself, it wasn't because of physical pain. It was because I experienced some things and I was going through some things. And I'm glad you talked about the grief. We don't even grieve as people anymore. Grief is not even considered normal. So many of us are dealing with trauma on top of trauma, pain on top of pain, pain inside of pain, pain from this one transferred to this one. And so many of us are just holding on to so much toxic, negative baggage. And before you know it, you're in pain, not because of your own issues, but just taking on from so many other things. Some of us have family members who are draining the life out of us, sucking the life out of us and killing us. And no matter how you pray, Pastor Sam, Pastor Sam, you can pray. You still have them people sucking the life out of you. So there are some basic things. Homelessness is a very big problem in our community. Sexual trauma. I'm sorry, I said that wrong word. Oops. Sexual trauma. We don't even talk about sexual trauma. Right? Like, oops, I'm in the wrong place, sorry. No. But sexual trauma is very big in our community. Right? We used to think about rape as the female being the victim and the male being the victim. Now we have more males are victims of rape. I mean, how do we talk about the real things that can push a person to that point where they just don't want to live anymore? Like, I just don't want to be here anymore. So you hear the things that people are saying and you see the behavior, but you need to understand there is a deep pain inside of someone who is hurting. And it doesn't matter how religious or spiritual you are, because I'm telling you, I deal with a lot of religious and spiritual people who still think of killing themselves.
That's right.
Many of them have succeeded because they could not even within the church talk about what their experience is, what they have gone through, or how they are feeling. I say this to a lot of clergy leaders all the time because I wear many hats. Let's just say that. So I get a chance to meet with a lot of clergy leaders from all kinds of, and I say to them, it's good to have your church filled with people in the pews. But I think you need to focus on, is their body there but their mind somewhere else? Or is their whole being in the church focused on the spiritual enlightenment that they need? Because you have many people in the church who are physically in the church, but their pain, their trauma, their circumstances, that's where their mind is. So they're not even able to get the word, heed the word, or even be uplifted by the word. So when we talk about this, we need to come back to a human being. Everything that you are in your life adds on top of the fact that you're a human being. You could be as spiritual as you want, but if you don't balance that out with the human existence, you are off balance. You are too spiritually high, but you're not getting the nurturing to balance off. That's why it's beautiful that they're opening this conversation in the church tonight, because there's some people in the church right now who really need an upliftment from a human perspective. Not that they're spiritually weak, not that they don't know how to pray, not that they don't have faith, but the human side is suffering. And so if the human side is suffering, it's hard for people to focus and to stay balanced and to think of the things that they need. When I talk about culture, ladies and gentlemen, many of us have never heard about mental health. It is in the last few years that the term mental health has come into the community for us to really talk about it the way that it is. And if it wasn't for all the gun violence and the shootings and the mass shootings that happened, we would have never had some of these conversations. So let's be open. Let's be real tonight. Let's have a real conversation, okay? Don't be afraid to talk or ask questions. There is no question that you can ask here tonight that is going to make it look like, oh my God, that's out of this world. Let's have a real, serious conversation. Because the loss that you have suffered, I can tell you, I work in this district. I live in this district. And if I tell you how many completed suicide cases I have worked on, right here, around the block, right here, you would never believe it. Wow. So it is happening. It's real. What we need to do is have a real conversation.
Okay. Again, I've said, already our panelists have